first of all, and it's great to have a chance to share with you some of the stuff that we're doing. You were very kind in your introduction, so thank you. But I actually only have one real job today, and that is to be the hype person for Lauren Seller, who runs the ID gum brand, and I think is probably the most representative of the brand marketers and how future forward they are. And so I feel very blessed to have the chance to work at an organization with marketers like Lauren, who are not only pushing the envelope, but are also willing to come and present some of the stuff that we're doing here. So that's my only job. I just have to make sure that I warm the crowd up for you guys. So we're going to need some laughter and some... But first I have to tell you that I actually have a new job. And so I no longer am at Kraft Foods. I think the person in the back is supposed to hit the slide. You're hitting it now. So some of you might know, but as of 5 o'clock yesterday, Kraft Foods Group split into two companies. And so the grocery business went, it will still be called Kraft Food, but Kraft Food Group. And the global snacks business will be called Mondelez International. And so I'm sure a bunch of you are asking, well, what the heck is this Mondelez International? Well, Mondelez International was a whole new company that was reimagined around one specific focus, which is to create joy. And have you ever had some of our amazing products? They're very, very chilled. Yeah, I love Toblerone, actually. I think it's one of the sexiest chocolates out there. Anyway, it's a totally different story. But it's also an organization. That was not planned. That's a little premature. I apologize. That's how the new Mondelez is going to operate. You don't waste any time. We're going to get straight into the future. All right. So let's just go to the next slide. Because it's kind of funny, I think that what's interesting is that this slide sums up where we are as a society right now. I think we need a mobile strategy and nobody's actually paying attention. But what's interesting is that we've become a society built of distracted individuals. At the same time, we believe that we're actually becoming more multitaskers, and every single person goes around and says, no, I'm paying attention while I'm on my BlackBerry, don't worry, I'm a multitasker. Well, there was an interesting study that was done by the Institute of Psychiatry, and what they found is, that those distracted by technology saw a 10% drop in their IQ, which is twice those that actually smoke marijuana. So you're probably better off being a pothead than you are being a multitasker. But it's only getting worse. And in fact, consumers are spending more than 25% of their media consumption with mobile, and at the same time, marketers are spending less than 1% of their media dollars on this channel. And I think that's a travesty that we have to address. Next slide, please. But here's the sad truth, is that there are 7 billion people in the world, 5.1 billion of them own cell phones, and only 4.2 billion actually own a toothbrush. So apparently, hygiene is less important to society than mobility, or either the other 1.1 billion didn't get the text message because they didn't have a phone to receive it on. But what I think is, if we used to believe that the internet was this thing that was going to change the way we do business, and it was this wave of transformation, then mobile clearly has become a tsunami. And I think if we look at some simple stats, that fact becomes clear. It took 38 years to reach 50 million for radio, 13 years to reach 50 million for TV, 4 for the internet. And how many people in here remember a time before the iPad? Raise your hand. Yeah, it's not that difficult, right? It was like less than a year. Before the iPhone 5, anybody remember that? Well, in less than 2 years, the iPhone was able to reach 50 million people. But I think even more important than that is, well, pace of innovation is happening at an unprecedented rate. It's this consumer adoption that should give pause for marketers. And that's what marketers should be focused on, is that we are actually bringing these things into our lives. And it's distracting us from paying attention to what traditional marketers believe are the scale channels that are actually driving message. So how do we reshape and rethink our media plans? And that's something that I'm going to talk a little bit about today. But the other thing I think is these numbers actually hide the complexity. So each and every single one of you are in here because you are in love with mobile. But mobile is a very complex beast. It's like your wife. It's kind of like, being married. You don't know when to say yes, when to say no. You're always wrong. You never get it right. You don't know what format she's interested in. All those kind of things. Something like that. But the point is that it comes with immense complexities. And we have to continue to help the industry figure out how to deliver on those complexities and how to not let those be barriers. Because what's happening now is that people will say, well, it's too complex to operate at scale. The media is not quite there yet. It's too infantile. Yet the entire world, as we see from the toothbrush slide, are actually using these devices. And we're letting our fear and our failure of sophisticated tools to measure stop us from actually going where our consumers are. Next slide. Because the fact of the matter, I love this slide, right? It's like, honk if you love Jesus, text while driving if you want to meet him. But the fact of the matter is that texting has become like blinking, and the average person sends about 400 texts, and the average teenager, how many texts do you think they send? 3,700, 4,000, yes. You must have been reading the notes earlier.
I heard Melissa laugh.
Oh, that's right. She gave part of this presentation. I apologize for that. I'm so much cuter. How many people have actually felt their phone vibrating, and when they looked out, it actually wasn't ringing? Anybody? Well, it's now become a real syndrome, and it's called phantom phone vibration syndrome. And I'm sure Martin will have a drug to cure it at some point. But what's interesting is that this has become a real psychological issue, and it's changing our behavior of people. There's another interesting stat that talked about 80% of mothers who nurse actually text at the same time. A professor did a study, and he saw that negative reactions to text messages can actually have negative reactions between the mother-child bonding. So not only is it changing our behavior in terms of media consumption, but it could actually be changing infants. It could be transforming our entire society, and we don't even know what those implications are going to be yet. Next slide. And this is who we have to blame. The mobile phone was invented in 1973 by a man named Martin Cooper. He was a former Motorola vice president. I'm sure a lot of you knew that. But what he created was not just a device to transmit voice. He started a movement that is going to change the world as we know it. A movement that will give rise to a place of connected devices unimaginable. Some predictions state that every single packaged good in your grocery will be connected to the internet by 2020. So forget about phones. What we're talking about, and I'm sure you've heard this, is the emergence of the Internet of Things. When we no longer are devices, we no longer live with our devices and the information in our devices, but we live in and amongst information. And every single thing is connected, which could mean huge implications for an organization like us. If every single one of our packages are connected to the internet, we might actually become the world's largest technology company. So it forces us to rethink, how do we future-proof ourselves? How do we focus on winning in the channel that we know is taking over the world? And why is it right? I think all of you guys have a good sense about this, but it's right for the consumer. The consumer sees this as preference, it's convenience, it's personal. It's the closest that we can ever get. Why is it right for business? It's unparalleled and untapped opportunity. And I'll give you an example. So this year, so as you guys know, I run all media. So this year, through the upfronts. The upfronts are 3 weeks, first of all. And the first week, it's the digital guys. And it's interesting because the digital guys are trying to be like the TV guys, like Google with Jay-Z and big event type stuff, right? But in reality, there's only 20% of the money that's actually sitting in that digital upfront. And you go to the mobile upfronts, and there's like the size of this room, and that's it. And everybody, I'm blown away that nobody's there, because what I see is a huge untapped opportunity. A huge opportunity for an organization like us to continue to be disruptive. A huge opportunity for an organization like us to harness the talent and create programs to work with the folks that are the leaders in the space so we can drive at retail, at purchase, immediate consumption. These are huge opportunities, and I'm blown away that the majority of our competitors are not sitting in that room and focused on it. So I chose to only do one keynote during upfront, and it was only during the mobile one. And then you go to the TV up front, and that's where 80% of the media is bought. And it's like never the twain shall meet. They never spend time in those other upfronts. So it speaks to, I think, a rift that we have in the industry, which we need to relentlessly close. But it's also right as a media choice. Scale, engagement, efficiency, and most importantly for retail partnerships, influence and purchase. You can go to the next slide. So, I keep looking over here like there's a TV screen, but it's not. I just keep saying only mobile. You guys got to work on that. We need 2 TV screens next time. So when we look at closing the gap, we have a simple model, which is kind of our mobile investment model. So the first thing is video equivalency. We know that more and more people are watching video on these devices. So how do we make sure that we're putting the accurate investment or the appropriate investment into the places where people are viewing more of this linear content. So what we did as part of that investment approach is we started with the upfront. So we started working with our cable and network partners to move an allocation of our spending to actual mobile. So that the other piece is most organizations like us operate on a reach-based approach. So it's all about reach-based planning. The more people we can reach with good creative, the more likely they are to buy our product. Well, the problem is that your ability to do that reach continues to decline as more and more people use video on demand and mobile. So unless you can have a true investment strategy, and most likely you want it to be at convergence, so convergent CPM, are you able to play the reach game? So we're moving investment into video equivalency. Social TV. So one of the things that we're seeing from our marketing mix models is that when we're running digital in conjunction with television, and when we're actually measuring the difference between it, which tends to be rare for some organizations, but we see a 2x increase in the effectiveness of the TV spot. So what we're saying is, well, if we can begin to harness the power of that through social TV or convergent TV or connected viewing, then we might be able to increase by multiples our largest investment, which is our TV investment. So huge opportunity for us there. Mobile media. If you just look at the basics of what people are saying, click-through rate, which is probably the closest that we have to measure how they work together. Click-through rates 3, 4, 5x. You see numbers that are crazy. Either way, it feels like directionally this is a more engaged medium. And at the same time, you see the reports on banner ads that only 70% of banner ads are actually viewable. I'm sure some of you have seen some of that research. So from that point, it feels like it's a more effective and efficient medium for us to go to. But if you step back and you actually think about our business in aisle, immediate consumption, impulse purchase. This is the only device that you have with you through that entire consumer journey. Your entire path to purchase, you have this device. So why wouldn't you shift money to start understanding how we can build top-of-mind awareness, how we can actually drive direct to purchase, deliver coupon kind of stuff, and then mobile at retail. So how does that affect packaging? How does that affect POS? How do we start investing in the technologies that are coming up, like Shopkick, or some of the stuff that we're doing with Google Wallet? So that's the other piece of our investment strategy. That's kind of the fourth bucket. So that's kind of how, when we're looking at overall mobile investment, that's kind of the strategy and approach that we're taking. Those are the 4 key buckets. Questions, thoughts? All right, I'm going to skip to a couple of case studies. Again, my only job in life today is to be the warm-up person for Lauren. So I am now going to go into warm-up mode. I am going to expect you to be jovial and extremely engaged. So here's the first example. You guys might have seen earlier this year we launched the Nokia partnership. And so what you're going to see in the next couple of weeks is the first fruit of that labor, where we're launching we're launching an application across all of the Nokia Windows 8 platform on Oreo. So we're super excited. But the reason why that partnership meant so much to us was not just because of the experiences that we were going to launch, but because Nokia gave us a chance to explore cross-platform. Windows 8, if you really think about it, is the only platform out there that is true cross-platform. So we can engage with Xbox, we can engage with connected TV, we can engage with mobile. So that's what we're doing with the Nokia partnership, is we're really exploring how do we bring cross-channel experiences to life. We know that viewing is happening more and more, with 60% of people actually doing something else while viewing television. So how do we explore that? And that's the reason why we did Nokia. Next slide. So the RICS program. And for those of you who don't know, Ed Kazmarek, who runs innovation, is here today and also has been the pioneer of a lot of the work that, I have the benefit of standing on the shoulders of giants and all the work that he did with the iFood Assistant app and help me out, I don't know. Big Fork, Little Fork, and the Big Fork, Little Fork app, and really laying the ground for what has been the most successful branded app in the history of branded apps. And so I bring that up because Ed is driving a lot of our mobile work now, and also those RICS partnerships. So I think what's interesting here is, you guys know Shopkick. We did a project with Shopkick. And what's interesting is the numbers. In terms of those people who had interaction with Shopkick, their likeliness to purchase. And so, 25% said, yes, I did purchase. 33% were in the consideration set, and 59% of either purchased or were more likely to purchase as a result of having an experience with Shopkick. So what we're seeing is dramatic opportunities to drive the relevancy at the actual point of purchase through mobile. So we're super excited about that. And so, next slide. Sorry. And then last month we ran a program with Nilla Wafers, and this was looking at NFC and near field. My thoughts on near field are pretty simple. I wish it came out in iPhone 5, and it didn't, because that would have probably transformed at a pace that would be unprecedented. But I definitely think that the competitive manufacturers are, not only is it in phones now, but they're going to continue to proliferate that. So we wanted to explore what we could do there. And this is simple. How do you turn those shelf talkers into interactive shelf talkers? So you can walk up to the shelf talker, you can tap, you can receive additional content, and you can receive coupon type purchase stuff. So those are 3 examples that we've done most recently in the mobile space, and that should give you kind of how we're exploring that framework. But, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the one, the only, Lauren Seller from ID Gov. Big round of applause.
Thanks, Bonin, and thanks for having me today. I'm actually also really excited because being here today means I didn't have to drive 45 minutes to New Jersey, so I'm excited about that. So I wanted to talk today about ID Gum. ID is a new gum that we launched in August targeting teens. And the strategy behind the creative development of ID is that teens today are not defined by one thing. They're kind of in a band, they kind of play sports, they kind of want to go to college, but they also kind of want to join an internet startup. Point being, they're continuing to explore who they are and what they like. ID celebrates this curiosity by asking, why be about just one thing when you can kind of do a million things? This next video showcases a little bit more about the elements of discovery behind ID. Should have music.
Showcases the better than sound. Should we pause it?
Yeah.
We were going to do this on a mobile phone, which probably would have worked a lot better. So that's a video that was supposed to come a little later. Why don't you show the opening video so they have the chance to actually say anything?
That's okay.
All right.
So what you just saw, and we'll just play it again after I talk about it, is the arcade. So to help introduce the kind of brand concept, we launched the arcade a few weeks ago across desktop through Facebook as well as mobile and tablet. And the arcade is kind of an art gallery and kind of an arcade. There are 18 games, unique games, connected to the 18 pieces of artwork that we have on our pack. So we have 3 flavors, peppermint, berry melon, and spearmint. And then each of those flavors has 6 pieces of artwork on it. So there are 18 games connected within the arcade. And so what we do is we release a new game every week. But if teens want to get the games early, they can actually scan the packs with their mobile phone or their webcam, and that unlocks the game early. They can also scan the packs to get hidden elements of the arcade, different combos, and different levels within the arcade. And then arcade also encourages social interaction because it allows for people to compare their scores across the different games, as well as they can pit games to one another. So actually, why don't we watch the video again, because the games themselves are all very unique. They have a different look and feel, similar to each of the 18 pieces of artwork on tap. So it's kind of fun to look at how they come to life.
Here's the video.
So ago simultaneously. It's on Facebook as well as mobile and tablet on Android and iOS. And then in addition, as part of the ID Gum launch, we partnered with MTV. And we were the first brand to integrate with the Reverb technology into original content. So we partnered with Awkward, which is a top-rated teen show. And this program was rooted both in social interaction as well as second screen viewing. So we put our ID content into various platforms. So this lived, again, across desktop, mobile, and tablet with the WatchWith app. And we were all aligned to the season 2 finale. So our content was embedded into the finale, party wraps, as well as within the application as well. And then finally, as part of our Gum launch and bringing the kind of concept to life on TV, our launch commercial is about an outdoorsman who is celebrating his multiple passions.
It's a lot better when
All right, I can just, I know what that is. It's not working. There it goes.
Pretty good with those, right?
Yeah.
Just wait till
It's kind of.
ID Gum can kind of taste like peppermint and kind of like a hint of something else. Then I can kind of like bald eagles and kind of like bald eagles with hair.
So do you want to stay up and we'll do some Q&A?
Sure.
Do we have time? Yeah. Okay. So the last piece I was going to say is I just think that as we move forward, the best way to the best way to predict the future is to invent it. So that's kind of what we're saying.
We have microphones. We'll get.
Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. That's really interesting how you're incorporating technology into the product, which is also medium. And going along the lines of this Internet of Things concept, at some point you'll be able to program your product at ship because it'll be internet connected and it will allow you to actually change the attributes of the offerings. I mean, is that the kind of world we're going into?
I believe that we will right-size it so that it's appropriate for humanity. But we are definitely moving into a world where the real-time nature I see a world that's closer to real-time pricing than I see necessarily immediately to changing real-time attributes. Now that is from a food space, but I think that there are other industries that will change. So I think that becomes kind of the question. But I do think we're entering into a time where real-time will play more part of how we operate. But you could see connected packaging. Yeah, packaging, exactly. So we did some exploration earlier, but you can see connected packaging that knows that it's next to each other and might create a screen. If you know those blocks, the siftable blocks, so just think about those. They know when they're next to each other, when they're clicking, and they create different images as a result. So that's pretty close to the printed sheets.
Can you talk about your partnership? James Lee, I'm an analyst with CLSA investment firm. Can you talk about your partnership with Facebook a little bit and the effectiveness of your campaign doing with them? I'm very interested about the paid media side as well.
So what I would love for every single person in this room to do is to walk out from here. Sorry about the oh my God. But if you walk over to Times Square, you'll see the Oreo Jelly Twist. And so, as you guys know, we have the largest Facebook brand platform on Oreo. In total, I think we're about 7 million globally. 28 of them on the Oreo brand. But the Daily Twist was uniquely created to deliver against the Facebook real-time content creation target. If you actually go out there, what the Daily Twist is it's a daily publishing using the Oreo cookie and a glass of milk to bring to life, everyone loves Oreo cookie and glass of milk, to bring to life what that day's event was. And so it could be everything from Elvis's birthday, they had a cookie carved as Elvis, or when the rover landed on Mars, we had a Mars type cookie. And so we've been doing that over 100 days. and that is delivering into the Facebook and Tumblr and Twitter ecosystem. If you go out there, what you'll see is you'll see the big screens with all the different ads that we've created over the last 100 days, but we're also going out to our Facebook and Twitter fan base and asking them, hey, you tell us what you think the last daily twist should be, as well as the people who walk around 40 seconds. So they have a glass room where they're actually, in real time, sketching out the Oreo daily twist based on consumer input. They're going to announce it at 2 or 4 o'clock, one of those things. So, and then what we do with the Facebook ecosystem is we use paid advertising to amplify the reach of our content.
Bonin, can you talk a little bit about the mobile strategy with the company split between Kraft and Mondelez? So the mobile strategy has become different now, or is it the same, or where's it go from
I'm
here?
officially Mondelez International employee, so
You don't know?
Kraft Foods Group is on there.
We have a question in the back here.
We're gonna let Laura answer. No, what it is.
Hi, Dave Bowman from Zamoga. And I just had a question. You created a highly integrated and multi-channel campaign. What kind of success criteria metrics have you set for yourself? How are you going to go measure this when you're done?
So, I mean, I could talk broadly about, you want to do?
And then I'll jump in.
So, I mean, just in general, I'm not going to talk specifically about ID, but in general, marketing mix models are as important now as they have ever been. But I think the question becomes is how are you reading marketing mix models, and what attributes are you trying to increase in the ability to track that? So, it's the same exact metrics as you would have, which is what's my creative effectiveness, what's my ad effectiveness, what's awareness, what's penetration, all those kind of things. But now what we're trying to do is we're trying to use the connected co-viewing to help amplify that larger investment, to help gain greater engagement while our spots are running on TV. And this is specifically a TV experience, but that's what I'm talking about from the TV. But I think what they've done with ID goes a little further into it. I'm going to shut up.
No, so specifically for ID and the arcade, I mean, again, it's the same metrics that we continue to measure, but with arcade, I mean, the key metric is engagement through gameplay. So that's really what we're holding ourselves to there, is getting people out there and engaging. And in addition to the platform that we develop, we're also putting the games independently out in different areas where our teams are interacting on desktop and mobile. So we have standalone games as well. Some of those existing games as standalone units within different sites. So trying to drive gameplays.
Yeah. And doing that at scale by using scale media to drive that. What I also think is interesting about what Lauren has done is really being relentless about driving down people connected to the pack. So they call it packization, but where you're actually unlocking using the pack, so some engagement with the pack. We didn't show up every day. You hold up a camera and that unlocks levels and unlocks other games and art.
This is very exciting.
Shout out.
Dave Simpson from Theorem. What age range is ID targeting? And more importantly, campaigns have a beginning, middle, and end, but that's a chewing gum is a product with a production line. Does that have an end as well? Does that end at some point?
So ID targets teens primarily, and I'm just what is the question in terms of what ends?
The chewing gum. Does the chewing gum after the games become tired, and after the artwork becomes tired, and after all of the media
Right.
is spent?
Yep.
Does the gum continue, or is the gum part of the campaign as well?
No, the gum is will continue forever. Hopefully, it's very well. We just launched in August, but no, we're constantly innovating and looking for what's new and what's exciting. So we're continuing to think about what's next, and from a engagement, activation perspective, we're continuing to think of the next ideas. So it will continue.
You want to go lose the flavor at the bit? No, you go. Okay. Go ahead.
Bonin, can you give the audience, there are a lot of marketers here, a lot of agencies, and you've been in mobile for a long time at some big brands. Can you give them some insights and just advice on how they should really approach this going forward now that mobile has become such a big deal, as you pointed out earlier? Because not everyone is advanced in terms of where you're located, in terms of budget and all of that, and they are still dealing with 0.5%, 1% of budgets. Any advice and insights you can provide to the market in general for mobile?
Yeah, that's work. I think. So I was on a panel this morning, and that question similar to that came up. And I think what you saw here was a framework. I think the first thing is start with the details. So what is the data really telling you about your current marketing mix and what is it telling you about where your consumers are going? And so prove out where the data points are. So whether it's 23% of consumption and 1% of spending, whether it is what I was talking about in terms of the ability to increase the effectiveness of our existing investments, those kind of things. And then providing a clear, simple framework. So that framework that I walked you through is pretty straightforward. So yep, you've got video, you want to reach more, you have a TV spot, you want to reach more people, then we should be investing in mobile. Check, makes sense? Check. So that's how we're getting to a portion of it. You know, the second piece is, hey, do you believe, as I do, that the moment an ad comes on, it's text time? I mean, that's what everybody does, heads down. So if you believe that, and I think most people get that engagement rates are dwindling, then why wouldn't we invest in trying to bump up those engagement rates on our large investment? Check. The next piece is, you know, mobile media. If you believe we're an impulse and immediate purchase, why wouldn't we try to infiltrate the device that's closest to the path to purchase in the car? Consumer journey, check. And then the next piece is that retail. We all want to run at retail. So, well, you know, we put a big goal out there. We created a pretty simple framework that allows. It's not too disruptive. It's disruptive to the organization, but you can easily see how you can get there. And so my advice would be start with the details. So I spent like looking through tons of M&As when I first showed up, and then create a simple framework that's an easy glide path for the organization, but is far enough out that it will actually get you to a place where it's future-proof. So I think we have a really big goal, but we have a clear pathway to get there.
Any other questions? Bonin and Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you. I know, right? Well, I said before.